Hey, and welcome to Board with Life News for May 28th. Today we're going to talk about Camel Up, 2 new games from Ube Rosenberg, Aquasphere, and the Kickstarter for Hollywood Make Your Own Blockbuster. Let's hit it. Hey, I'm Chris. Welcome to Board with Life News. Let's get right into board game news. First up, Camel Up, hot off the heels of its Spiel des Jahres nomination. We just got news that Z-Man Games is going to be publishing it in the US. It's a 2 to 8 player betting wagering game that actually Donald and Nikki just got back from Europe and they picked it up in Germany and brought it over. So I've gotten to play it and it's a lot of fun. It's a light wagering game. It fits 8 players really, really well, and basically there's different colored camels and they move at different rates, and you can have little tokens that can advance a camel or make it go back. But probably the most interesting thing is they can stack on top of each other. So if they get on top of each other, the camel on top would be in first place and the camel on bottom would be in second place. So it's all this kind of risk-reward betting game that's a lot of fun and pretty silly. So I'm sure that that's going to be a big hit over here with the old Spiel des Jahres nomination and all. Moving on. So we got news about not 1 but 2 new games from Ube Rosenberg. First up is Arler Erde, and it's a 2-player worker placement game. It sounds pretty classic Ube Rosenberg. It's about developing an estate and expanding it. Only news so far is that it is a pretty classic Ube Rosenberg. You've got to, like nourish your people and all that good stuff. It seems like a pretty deep strategy game. The other one is called Nusfjord, and it's set to be out in 2015. And this one's a lot lighter. It's for 2 to 5 players, and apparently you're only managing 3 resources, which are gold, wood, and fish. So it seems like you're going to get kind of both spectrums of Ube Rosenberg in the next year or so. So that's very exciting because he's one of my absolute favorite designers, and he should be one of your favorite designers too. So good. All right, moving on. Sticking with news of some of my favorite designers, Stefan Fell has a new game coming out, and it's called Aquasphere. It's for 2 to 4 players, and it's also a worker placement game. This looks like it has a really fun theme. And by the way, the image that I have up right now is from the German gaming group Spieltreff Dulken off their Facebook page by way of Board Game Geek News. So looks pretty interesting. It looks like there's a lot going on in the game. Basically, you're underwater researchers and you have labs and all this kind of stuff. And you get to do things like collect crystals and examine octopi, one of the 2. You examine either one of them. But so it's actually pretty interesting. It looks very Feldy, lots of moving parts, lots of decisions to make each turn. But seems like a fun theme, so I'm always excited about a Feld game. So I'm excited about this one. All right, now on to Kickstarter news. This week's Kickstarter is Hollywood Make Your Own Blockbuster. This is actually a game that came out in Russia a year or 2 ago, and it was a big hit, so they're bringing it over to the US. And it obviously is a game where you're trying to make a blockbuster film in Hollywood. You do that by way of drafting and auctions, where you're drafting, trying to get the biggest stars and the best directors and the best special effects and all that kind of stuff. And there's also an auction phase where you bid on other stars and other things like that. And then you get to decide if you're going to try to make like one big blockbuster using all your people, or you're going to make 2 or 3 smaller movies with different things. And then the person who makes the most money wins. You can get acclaim through an Academy Awards type little thing. So yeah, it seems pretty fun. It seems like a fun theme that's well thought out, and it's $40 right now on Kickstarter. So definitely go check that out if that interests you. All right, it was a busy week for news, so I actually didn't even hit all of it. There's tons of expansions and stuff for games, so definitely check out Shut Up and Sit Down news or the Board Game Geek news if you want a fuller spectrum, but I tried to keep it a little bit brief, and yeah, I'm sorry, a bunch of news got bumped because 2 of my favorite designers released news about their games. So anyways, definitely subscribe to us on YouTube and follow us on Twitter and like us on Facebook and do all that good stuff. We'd love to have that little chit-chat dialogue. Speaking of chit-chat dialogues, let's go to the question that I'm going to answer this week. So this week's question is via Twitter from @KikaThumper, and she asks, what's the best game to play after a couple cocktails and before a few more? There are lots of good games to play. I've already gone over games that are good to play at bars, so I'm going to skip those. Let me check. Space Cadets Dice Duel, that's a really good game when you've gotten a little bit of the poison juice in your tummy. It's very crazy anyways, so it doesn't really matter that you aren't as good at it. Dungeon Fighter. Dungeon Fighter is a lot of fun. It's a dexterity game. Dungeon crawler where you're crawling through dungeons and you have to roll dice onto kind of a target to determine if you hit a monster or bad guy or whatever, but then there's all sorts of extra dexterity challenges, like you have to do it with your eyes closed, or you have to do it from under the table, or you have to do it where your partner is holding your hand and throwing it, so it already is really crazy and dumb and silly, so I would say that one's a lot of fun. We really like Slash, which is sort of like Cards Against Humanity or Apples to Apples, where one player plays a card out and then everyone else has to pick a card, but it's a storytelling game, and it's sort of like a slash erotic fiction game, where, say, somebody will play Mothra, and then everybody has to pick a character out of their hand and explain the romance that happened between Mothra and, say, Chewbacca, or a Tetris brick, or all sorts of crazy things, and they're worth various points. So it's a lot of fun, and it's based entirely around kind of telling your own story, and it doesn't have the problem with Cards Against Humanity, where you can only kind of be as funny as your cards allow because it's all in your hands. So we like that one a lot, and that one goes really well. So I'll say those 3 games are all good for having a little bit of daddy juice in your tummy while playing games. All right, thanks for tuning in, and I'll see you next week.